Hi everybody, my name is Markus Herbert and today I'm reading 2 chapters of the book The Ghost Town, The Secret of Evil from my friend Frank Krause. I do this because of a reference to my own book. I read a part of the chapter Behind the Surgeon and the complete chapter Martin. Behind the Surgeon. Suddenly, Jesus pushes away something like a surgeon in front of my eyes, and he sees the people as if it was using a spiritual X-ray machine. I can see into them and understand what is happening on the inside. On this side of the surgeon, the church resembles a completely overcrowded military hospital in a war. Groaning and screaming can be heard from all directions. Almost all the people seem to have more or less serious wounds and injuries. Their souls sit inside them like children, rigid with fear, whimpering and trying to hide. The air is filled with the smell of untreated wounds and swarms of flies. While the pastor changes the subject and begins to talk about a new construction project for which a collection is to be made, the angels are hurrying about to help the suffering and to drive away the terrible flies. On the other side of the surgeon, the church become restive, and the pastor calls for the people to concentrate on the sermon. He is afraid that now, when such an important church project is being discussed, they do not really want to listen. He assumes that the restiveness is an attack, nothing other than a distraction from the enemy to sow confusion, doubt and disunity where possible at this important point in the development of the church. Never, in his wildest dreams, would it occur to him that God might be bringing this restiveness into the church. He asks for special attention, which distracts some of the children in the adult from Jesus. Other children look around and discover Jesus. Now they cry and whimper even more and simply call out of mercy, as people at all times have done when they have encountered Jesus. For in his presence, this surgeon is pulled aside and everything is revealed as it really is. But some do not even have the strength to cry out for mercy, and others are afraid of Jesus as well. Cautiously, Jesus approaches one of these children and pushes itself out as far as possible to the edge of his adult shell. "You shall live," Jesus says to it. "Do you know that?" "But I don't want to live. I want to die." The children answer without hesitation. "Why do you want to die?" asked Jesus. "Because then I would be redeemed from this life." There's the child. A closer look reveals that this child looks terrible, neglected and skinny. "I am redemption," Jesus now says to the child, and gives the angel a sign to give the child a piece of bread. Because of the child's panic, they do this very gently. However, it does not touch the bread. We take a step back to give it a chance to emerge from the corner and snatch the piece of bread, but it hesitates. The flies take this chance to pounce on the bread until it's covered in them. It is horrible. And I take it as a lesson that I should not hesitate out of false humility when Jesus gives something to me. It is better to respond immediately. Here it also becomes clear to me how hard it is even for God to reach people who live in fear and panic. Now I'm really shocked at the true state of the church and feel overwhelmed by everything I'm watching. I ask a less anxious child how long it has been in the church, and it answered, "In which church?" "Well," I said to him, "we are here in a church service, and I would like to know how long you have been coming here." The child looks at me questioningly and seems really not to know what I'm talking about. I do not understand this. Then it notices the pastor beside me and says, "I have often seen that man." I nod, relieved about the progress in our conversation. But then the child adds, "But he has never seen me." The two planes, in front and behind the surgeon, are so totally different, and the outward church ministry ignores the true reality so completely that I feel faint. The deafening noise, the horrible flies, the disgusting smell of decay and stinking wounds overcome me, and I fall onto my own knees. Jesus lays his hand on my shoulder and says, "It takes courage to see the truth." Martin. How we can reach these children? I wonder. I do not really expect an answer to my question, because I cannot think of any answer myself. Jesus' answer, "Become like me." What are you like, then? I ask in reply. I became like them, and that is why they can come to me, and I can lead them back to the Father. As he says this, Jesus points to his wounds. I had imagined these wounds to be terrible, as I had seen them in the Jesus movie, but I had absolutely no idea of what they are really like. I had not truly understood how badly wounded Jesus really was. Before he was nailed to the cross, he was tortured extensively. His back was whipped, his head and face pierced by the crown of thorns. Somehow he dragged his cross to Golgotha, but in the end he needed assistance in order to reach his place of execution alive. He did all this for only one reason: to become one of us, with all that implies. He truly bridged the gap of the hurt and wounded children inside people by taking their pain and injuries upon himself and meeting them on the level of their woundedness. He has become one of them, acquainted with loneliness, misery, and death. It is not possible to truly redeem someone if you do not really share their misery, as he did. Then Jesus says, that is why it is not enough for angels to give the children bread, as you saw in the vision. I, myself, must do it. I am the only one who truly can give them the bread of life. I will show it to you. Come with me. Although everything in me resists the idea of returning to that Church of Jesus Christ again, in the next instant we are already there. This time Jesus looks at pitiable and wounded as the children. He is more or less naked and covered in wounds, which immediately attract the flies. No, I won't allow that. I shout out and try to drive away the impudent flies, but the angels restrained me. Either he becomes totally like them, or it will not work at all, they say. But I do not want to believe them. I cry out, Jesus, how can you do this? There must be another way. You can just snap your fingers and then these dreadful flies away and everything will be all right. Or can't you? He does not answer me, but sits down inside of one of the adults in the filthy cell where the person's inner child dwells. The outer, adult person does not really notice this, or maybe just slightly. After the service, he will tell one of the counselors of the church that he felt rather strange during the service and is worried that something is wrong. The counselor will ask him if he has fallen behind the spiritual disciplines like Bible reading, prayer, and church attendance, and how things are going at home. However, since all seem to be well, the counselor will assume that it was an attack to distract him from the sermon. Then he prays that the Lord will preserve him from evil and help him to pay attention to what the pastor says. But Jesus has entered the cell of the child and is sitting beside him, says nothing, while the children is staring at him with mistrust and amazement. Where did he come from? The child is sure to be wondering. Until now, no one had ever entered this cell, except himself in the form of an adult. And even that happened very seldom. But Jesus does not look like an enemy, or like one of the adults who ignore the inner child completely. This person looks as neglected and sad as the child itself. Maybe even worse. After puzzling over this for a while, in silence, the child relaxes a little. No, this man is definitely in a worse state than he is. In fact, he is in total agony and covered in blood. The child approaches him and says, "My name is Martin. What is yours?" Jesus looks at the child and doesn't reply. The child continues, "I live here, you know. This is my home here." "This is my home too," says Jesus, after a further silence. "You can see that it was not easy for me to come in here," he says, pointing to his many wounds. "And for me it's not easy to get out of here," Martin exclaims. "I can think of any reason for you to want to come here of all places. That's idiotic. You just cannot have known what was waiting for you here. Otherwise you would have never come. You need to know that the adults never tell the truth." Yes, I know that. And that is why I am here, although it has really cost me a lot. Everything, in fact. That's crazy, Martin laments again. "It is the craziest thing I ever have heard. What on earth could you expect to find here which would be worth all your suffering?" Martin points into the almost empty cell. "You look as you have fought with a dragon." "Well, I did," Jesus answers and repeats thoughtfully. "Oh yes, Martin, that's exactly what I did. But there is definitely no princess hidden here," Martin laughs. "You have fought in vain." Attracted in spite of himself to be wounded stranger with the kindly eyes, Jesus and Martin wept unrestrainedly, and their tears mingle in the heart of Martin, who does not really realize what is going on. He is so occupied with everything except his heart. And indeed, the whole Church of Jesus Christ seems to be in this state. There is scarcely anyone who even begins to notice that Jesus is actually doing. Many of the church members have, like Martin, given their heart to Jesus, but no one really knows what that actually means. They search for Jesus in the Bible, in the meeting, and in the many activities and projects of the church. But he is sitting inside their hearts, trying to make contact with a neglected inner child to bring peace and comfort here. The amount of comfort and healing that all these children need in order to find peace seems incredibly large to me. The work of drawing together and bringing harmony between the inward and the outward person also seems immense. I would never have thought that this work is the very work of Christ, or how wonderful and essential this work for reconciliation really is. Unless you become like little children, you cannot save the world, because you cannot reach the hearts, the real core of the person, which is the child, says Jesus, who is suddenly standing beside me and looking into the scene in Martin's heart with us. It will take time until Martin can trust me enough to dare to take my hand and go through the door with me, and to discover that the world of the heart is so much bigger than his cell, full of adventures, miracles and glory. He will be surprised that the church knows so little about this and has become mired down in outward activities. Then he will automatically become involved in the conflict between the tradition and ideas of the church regarding the kingdom of God and the work of Christ. For anyone who begins to follow me can no longer follow the traditions and ideas of a church. Either or. Thank you so much for listening to this deeply touching story. Bye bye, and I hope to see you again soon.